Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Grace McCarrick.
Good evening, everyone. How's this mic doing? Okay. So I know we started a little early. I'm totally fine. Eat dessert, grab a drink. I just need this front row to have all eyes on me, nodding, smiling, laughing appropriately. Okay, cool. So I was having dinner with a friend last week, and my phone buzzed. I picked it up, rude. And it was from another friend. She said, "Tell me I'm not crazy. Tell me I'm not the only one. We are interviewing for a bunch of roles on our team. We are interviewing Gen Z, and they are bombing these interviews. They can't get a job with us to save their lives. They are oversharing like that is actually their job. In this last week alone, we had one person cry within the first 10 minutes. We had another person say, I can't come on video because I'm not physically or emotionally presentable right now. I just had therapy. And then we had another person who didn't share anything super personal, but they did tell us about the last 3 times they were fired recently. What is going on? Are we the only ones dealing with this? So I go, okay, that's a problem for later. I'll deal with that later. I put my phone away. I face the person I'm actually having dinner with. She says, tell me I'm not crazy. I'm dealing with this person on my team who's younger, and she cannot own a single thing to save her life. I have to give her 8 directives to get where we're going, and she barely clears half of them well. What is going on? Am I the only one? Are they the only ones? No. Okay. We are in a workforce with the most generations we have ever had at once. We have a very specific younger generation. And before I get into it, let me just say this is not going to be like a Gen Z bashing thing. This is going to be a productive conversation. But can anyone in the room who has in the last month been in a conversation where someone on your team is having tension with a younger team member not really working the way you expect them to? Can you raise your hand? In the last month? Okay. Okay. So the plan tonight, and we're going to keep it to a cool 20 minutes, is that I am going to give you 3 concepts for why this is happening, so you don't feel crazy, but also so you have some things to talk about. And then I'm going to give you 3 ways to come at this. Hopefully you can leave here and tomorrow put some of this into effect with your team. See some differences. Sound good? Ooh. Okay, does anyone follow Tim Urban? Wait, but why? Oh, it's a great tech blog. The first thing I think is really helpful to understand, and Greg actually alluded to this, we are in a moment of accelerating change. The most change we have ever experienced as a human species at the fastest rate it has ever been. There's a futurist who calls this human history's law of accelerating returns. It's the theory that with technological innovation comes speed. So the more innovation we get, the faster it goes. And this person theorizes that all of the innovation that happened in the 20th century, so that's all the good stuff, right? The Industrial Revolution, that if that were happening at the speed that we are in 2025, it would have been taken 20 years to cover all that ground, just 20 years. So when your team members feel like you're moving 1,000,000 miles an hour and things are changing constantly, it's normal. Everyone's human. Who here worked before email? Okay. I'm seeing some forced hands go up. Who worked before your bosses and teammates had your texts, your cell phone number? Who worked before instant messaging? Okay. Who worked before AI was ubiquitous? That's a lot. That's a lot of us. So if you think about how drastically the day-to-day experience has changed in just the last 5 years, it's no wonder people cannot figure out what does success look like? How do I move ahead? So I think that's one thing to keep in mind, to remind ourselves we're not crazy. Then we've got this. Social norms are few and far between, shared social norms, and they are getting fewer and farther between. So my dad grew up in the Bronx in the 70s, and Irish Catholic, if that helps. If he were to wear a cap into church and his mom wasn't around, what would happen? So, someone said slap, sure. Would other parents hesitate to tell him to take it off? No. Oh, you think yes. In 1970s, another parent would hesitate? You're killing my punchline here. But I appreciate it. Generally, you walk in, a bunch of other mothers take the hat off. You walk into school, 2 nuns, a couple other parents take the hat off. You walk into a restaurant, hat off, hat off. When you learn these things reiteratively at a young age, you grow up thinking they're common sense. Just common sense, right? It's common sense for maybe a man of 70 to walk through a restaurant and think, what are all these guys doing in hats? It's common sense. You don't wear a hat at a table. But it's not common sense. It's just a social norm that was reiterated over and over and over and over again. So something interesting that has happened in the last 20 years of parenting is no one parents other people's kids anymore. Right? You're at the park, some kid's misbehaving, the mom's not around. Who's saying something to that kid? Who's stopping them? You guys, these two back here, they're like, oh, we are. I love when that happens. Generally, the rules that are set up for kids right now, they are only enforced by the parents. I work with someone else who is a kid in kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher got a notice at the beginning of school in September. Please don't say no to the kids, it's too harsh. So when you're in your workplace thinking about this is common sense, everyone's gonna know this. When you come in for an interview, you come in a tie if you have one. You come in 15 minutes early. Like, these are common sense things. They are not common sense. If people don't learn them at home, they don't learn them because they are not getting parented by other people around them, and the schools are not teaching these behavioral concepts. Okay, and then this fun graph that we're looking at, has anyone read Anxious Generation? Couple people. Who has kids or grandkids who are under 14? Okay, every single one of you needs to read this book. Or at least listen to a podcast that the author was on. It's really important to understand this. So the graph you're looking at on the, what are you looking at here? Left. On the left, it starts in 2006. These are 12th graders. You're looking at 2 lines. One is how much time they spend alone in their house on the phone. And the other line is how much time they spend, 10 or more hours a week, in person with other people, with their peers. So that's 2006 to 2019. That's not even to 2025. But that line's really important. So significantly more time alone with their phone than with other people. And then this line over here, this graph on the right, starts in the 70s, comes, I think, to like 2014, 2015. Percentage of middle schoolers who see their friends outside school every day or every other day. So who hang out with kids their own age in person every day or every other day. It's kind of a bleak line, right? No? Yeah. So this is doing 2 things. When you have a generation, and Gen Z, does anyone not know what Gen Z is? So Gen Z is our first generation raised like this. They were born 96 and on. So when you have a generation that is raised in their really formative brain years by technology, two things happen. One is social modeling, which is, we are ultimately modeled after animals. We have animal brains. Social modeling is incredibly important for us to learn how to navigate the world around us. So all of that social modeling that happens in person, what's your name? Carson. Okay, Carson and I are 12 together on the schoolyard. We get into a fight. Carson says something to me, rude. My adrenaline goes up, and I have to then figure out, how do I answer that? How do I have that conversation? How do I say what I need to say? That's building all those muscles in my brain that's really important for kids. But if Carson and I are 12 in 2025 or 10 years ago, he likely says something to me over text. And then I take that text and I go to my mom and I say, how do I answer this? Or my best friend, I screenshot, how do I answer this? So I don't actually work that muscle. I'm learning a very shallow version of all of these social skills. So you're looking at a generation that has a very shallow understanding of all of these social skills. The way you can understand how that shows up is eye contact or lack thereof, inability to call the pizza place to ask to pick up a pizza, call the doctors to make a doctor's appointment, things like this. The other thing that happens is they have very little context for the world in which they are seeing. So at a very dismal, bleak level, they're looking at a war in another country on their phone when they're 14. Their parents aren't around to provide context for that. How do you understand how that relates to us? But then, even more concerning and I'd say more ubiquitous is they're getting all this information about here's how you interact with other people. Here's how you approach someone you like. Here's how you talk to teachers. Here's how you talk to adult strangers. And a lot of the information on social media is, excuse my French, no, I won't curse. It's very bad. It's very bad. It's from disillusioned, bitter people who are trying to put out things that make themselves feel better to get attention. I don't know. But there's a lot of really bad information out there. And if the kids are sitting alone, where that chart was, sitting alone in their rooms looking at all of it, there's no one to explain, to contextualize. Actually, if you like someone, that's not how you approach them. When you're going into an interview, you don't go in and say, I'm the value here. You guys need me more than I need you, which, by the way, is advice going around social media right now. So you can see with these factors how things are getting a little muddy. How do we approach it? How do we solve? So one of the interesting things that I think talking about Gen Z helps us with is I think of Gen Z as like the canary in the coal mine. So what was Greg's stat there, 40% turnover? Gen Zs need so much help with this part of work that they are actually pointing us to gaps and issues that we probably should have been solving 15 years ago. Our hiring needed to be different, our onboarding needed to be different, our training needed to be different. If we wanted to attract good people and keep good people, it needed to be different. It's not just for Gen Z, it benefits everyone, but it's okay. We're gonna start now. Belonging as an individual is a really interesting concept created by these researchers who were studying a call center in India, which is not a glamorous job, I think we can all agree. It's sort of a more transactional job. So they had two groups of people onboarding into this call center. The first group, they did their standard onboarding. They get a sweatshirt, they get a rundown of the systems, here's how things work, send them on their way. The second group, they gave them a sweatshirt with the company name and their name, and then the manager sat down with them for an hour on the first day. What special skills do you have? What are your goals for your career? Tell me a little bit about yourself. 7 months later, out of those two groups, the group with the sweatshirt with their company, their name and the company name, 250% more likely to be there 7 months later. 250%, that's huge. In a call center, I think their average turnover is 50. So this concept of I want to be somewhere where I as an individual am valued, but I get to feel like I'm a part of a team, that works very well for our brains. That makes a lot of sense to us, especially for young people. So something you could do immediately, you could have your teams do immediately is, I think the sweatshirt idea is nice, but it could be so much as, what's your name right here? Sal, okay. So I'm onboarding into Sal's team. Sal says, hi everyone, meet Grace. Grace is a Jets fan like us, so she suffers, okay? But Grace really loves food and baked goods, so I'm excited to have her be out there and see, if she can add any input to what we have going on in the bakery section. Really simple, right? But you just said Grace belongs with us, and also she's an individual adding value. So that's something you could do immediately. And then we have entitlement. Who's heard this word, entitlement? I have a friend who's a really prolific speaker on a bunch of generations in the workplace. She's this amazing definition for it, which is too much, well, let me not say too much, although I did put that here. A lot of emotional support and coaching without a matching amount of standards and clarity. So we give too much emotional support and we don't say, here are your corresponding standards of behavior. Does anyone have standards of behavior when they have people come into their workplace? Here's how we behave. I think it's really important to do that right now. A lot of what I do when I teach soft skills in businesses like Uber, DoorDash, Spotify, I'm giving them the framework of soft skills so that they can speak to behavior without it feeling personal and yucky, which we're used to, we're like, that's not for us. No, the workplaces need to talk about behavior specifically for this generation. So anti-entitlement needs to be built into every step of your process. And it's going to sound painful, it's gonna sound like too much. You're interviewing with us, okay, come on in, we're gonna interview with Greg. Maybe I'm on Greg's team and I'm prepping this person. You're gonna interview with Greg. Show up 15 minutes early. The point of this interview is that Greg wants to hear, are you interested in this job? What do you want to bring to it? What are your career goals? He wants to see that you can think on your feet. He wants to see that you can be respectful. And he wants to hear if there's anything we can do to help support you in your growth. So those are the points you need to hit with him, and here's how I would approach it. Right, we don't do a ton of that, but start setting standards of behavior. Okay, it's your first day out on the deli counter. We want people to feel like we are so excited that they chose us. They can choose anywhere else. They can order delivery. We want them to feel excited. So one of the things we really need you to do is be engaged, be attentive to them. Here's what good looks like. And I think that's why Champions is probably always fun and interesting, because here's what excellent looks like. Once a year we get to, here's what excellent looks like. Here's how these people are excellent. It's really important to do that day to day in your teams, especially for this younger generation. And then finally, I call them the GPS generation. So not just because they were born with GPSs in their hands, particularly because of that, or maybe as a coincidence, they need in the workplace you to create the map. Here is where you're going. Here is the route you're going to take to get there. If there's a roadblock, then you have to turn down this road and look for these signs. Like, so much more explicit than you think it needs to be. A couple ways to do that. Oh, I'll do that after. So a couple ways to do that. One is I had this video go viral. I called it a performance review supplement. It said performance reviews stink. They're not that motivating. Here's how to make it actually motivating for this younger generation. Does anyone do performance reviews? Is that a normal thing? Okay. So instead of all the other rigmarole, 5 statements. Here's the team's bigger goal. Here's how you fit into the team's bigger goal. Here are the 3 skills you are bringing to us that are really valuable. Here are the 3 skills I believe you can sharpen here, and I need you to sharpen to keep growing. And then here is the growth path I see for you. This is just my opinion. But knowing what we have here, the resources we have here, how other people have grown, here's what I see for you. So a really crisp, clean, here is how you understand your place in this universe. Okay, does that make sense? Cool. And then the second thing, I don't want to get dessert thrown at me. If I have high school kids working for me, And it's common that a lot of grocers have high school kids part-time. Is that true? Okay. If I had high school kids working for me, knowing what I know, seeing what I see in the workforce when they're 22, I would lock up their phones. I know that's really hard. I know that sounds crazy. I would lock up their phones, and I would make it seem like this is what we are interested in here is growing you, supporting you, resourcing you. So we are putting things in place to make sure that you get the most out of this experience. There's not a lot of places, there's not a lot of businesses that train kids anymore. Kids have done different things. Gen Z, 50% of them didn't work in high school at all. That was a socioeconomic thing. Their parents had enough money, they didn't need to get those jobs. But we still want to be workplaces where people can thrive as they're learning and growing. So I would do my very best to get the phone out of the equation and not have it be a temptation. And then I would think about what other dopamine cycles show up in the workforce. And this is something I think about. More than happy to help any of you guys think through this. But I would say for people coming into sort of a grocery store or supplier, entry level or part-time when they're young, there's 3 really easy dopamine cycles that you can have them hit every single day. And that's what you want, right? Because the phone, and we're all guilty of this, is dopamine addictive, right? What new thing am I gonna see? What notifications am I gonna get? So if you take that out of the equation, you want to introduce them to, as we all had when we were learning, the dopamine cycle of learning something. So one is a completed task. I had a task, I had something to do, I had shelves to stock, I stocked the shelves, 1. The second is being able to measure getting better at something with your eyes and your hands. So I was a volunteer in Portland, Oregon a long time ago. I ran a food pantry, and I had this huge truck. To me, it felt huge. I called it a semi. I don't know if that's what it was, but cab, back. And I had to back it into the loading dock at the food bank. The first 15 times, people had to come out of the bank and get in the car and do it for me. I was very bad at it. But the day I got that, couldn't tell me anything. Walking on clouds. That's a huge dopamine system for people. And then finally, when a team wins, you being a part of that, and you being clear that you are a part of that, is a great dopamine reward system. So for example, I think we were talking about Dubai chocolate. There's a Stu Leonard's by me in Yonkers. For the entire summer was Dubai chocolate everything. Dubai chocolate croissants and cake and cookies. Someone probably young, probably online, had the idea to go, why don't we put these flavors in? Then they're off the shelves. Then everyone's talking about them. Then people are reviewing it on TikTok. That's a great feeling. So I would focus on giving your young people those dopamine rushes that they can get in the normal course of work. That they are in fact, what's the word? It's kind of a negative word to use, but it's been stolen from them. They don't get that learning rush anymore. They don't get it in schools. That's why we're banning phones in schools, so they can actually learn again. And then finally, the last thing, specific recognition. So recognition, doing it very specifically and doing it at a frequency of at least once a month. And so it's not, you're great, everyone loves you. Tell me your name. Elizabeth. It's not Elizabeth's great, we're happy to have her. It's Elizabeth is the #1 person that people go to when they have this question, and we're really appreciative to have her here because I feel like that's something our customers keep coming back to. Elizabeth serves this specific purpose for us, and it's really helpful. That was a lot of things I just threw at you. But I think if you stick on any one of them, you might be able to take it out the door today, implement it with the team this week, try it out, and you might find some behavioral changes that you would like to see. That is it for me. Thank you guys so much.